Hello, my name is Sandy Adamitis, the social media director for the Page International Screenwriting Awards, and your host for the Writers Hangout, a podcast that celebrates the many stages of writing, from inspiration to the first draft, revising, getting a project made, and everything in between. We'll talk to the best and the brightest in the entertainment industry and create a space where you can hang out, learn from the pros, and have fun. Hey, writers, it's Sandy. We continue to celebrate the 20th anniversary of our sponsor, the Page International Screenwriting Awards, with our guest, Angela Bourassa. Angela won the gold prize in the science fiction category for her script, Everything is Right Until It's Wrong, and under its new title, Turn Me On, the movie was filmed last year. In addition, Angela's movies, If You Were the Last and Black Bags, have also recently been produced. And If You Were the Last is premiering at South by Southwest next month. Let's get started. Angela, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me.
How has 2023 been treating you?
So far, so good. It's had some exciting things, happening. I've got my first feature premiering next month at South by Southwest. So been very excited, looking forward to that.
That is so great. And we will be talking about that. But before we get started, would you like to play a game of Would You Rather?
Always.
Okay. Would you rather live a peaceful life in a small cabin in the woods or a drama-filled life in a mansion in the big city?
Oh, I think I'd have to go drama-filled big city. That just sounds more interesting, doesn't it?
It's 100. Would you rather have a tattoo of the title of the last script you read or the last TV show you watched?
Oh, goodness. I think the last TV show I watched was Shrinking, so I'm not sure if that... tattoo. I don't know.
No.
I'm trying to think what the last script I read. That was called Clementine, so by my friend David Williams. So I think I'd go with that. That's a good tattoo.
I agree. Yes. Would you rather lose your keys or your cell phone?
Oh, cell phone for sure. That seems like it'd be a blessing in disguise.
Would you rather spend a Friday night out with Kurt Stutter, creator of Sons of Anarchy, or Mike White, creator of White Lotus?
Mike White, because then we could also talk about Survivor, which I would very much enjoy.
I would be obsessed in asking him questions about Survivor. You're so right. Would you rather read the book or watch the movie?
Oh, watch the movie. I'm not so proud of that one, but I would rather watch it.
Would you rather be stuck on an island alone or with someone who talks incessantly about Friends?
Well, my sisters do talk incessantly about Friends, but I love them. So if it was them, I'd take them. But otherwise, I'd probably choose alone.
Yeah, you're with your sisters.
Yeah.
Would you rather let a spider climb over you or let a snake slither across you?
Goodness. I guess it depends on the spider or the snake, but I think I'd be okay with either of those. My son is 6 and he's very into creepy crawly things, and it has made me more into creepy crawly things. So
yes, yeah,
I'd handle either of those. So that's not really an answer, but there you go.
No, would you rather have Rambo or the Terminator on your side?
Terminator, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you rather have to watch only Lost in Space reruns or only Lassie reruns for the next year?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to go with Lost in Space.
Yeah. Would you rather be trapped in a drama with people you hate or trapped in a horror movie with the people you love?
Definitely drama with people I hate, right? Because I don't want the people I love dying.
That's a really good point, Angela.
Yeah.
Last question. Would you rather have an extra $10K in your budget for your movie or a shaded parking spot with your name on it next to the front door of the stage or wherever you are on location?
I think the extra $10K is probably worth it for that.
Okay. Now, Angela, you won the gold prize in the science fiction category for your script, Everything is Right Until It's Wrong. And it's now titled Turn Me On. The
Yes.
movie was filmed last year, directed by Michael Tyburski, and stars Belle Powley. I love that name. And Nick Robinson. You're now in post production. Could you please tell us the premise of Turn Me On?
Sure. So it's it's set in a near future sort of idyllic society where this young woman rediscovers something that has been lost, and that thing is sex. So she's not quite sure what she stumbled across, and, hilarity ensues. I mean, not hilarity, but a comedy. But it's sort of a dramedy, grounded sci-fi sex, story. So lots of things mushed together, and it's quite fun.
What was the writing process like? What did you have to do? I mean, did everybody just love it and they said, let's shoot it? Or
Mhm.
did you have to do some rewrites starting after your
Starting,
win?
yeah. So starting before my win, I was introduced to the producer Greg Schmidt by my good friend Tim Schilberger. And that happened probably a year and a half before the Page win. And he liked the script, but thought it needed some work, wasn't ready to like fully attach his company to it, or the company he worked at. So he just worked on me one-on-one, and we went through several edits together. And then that got it to the point where it was, the script that did so well at Page. And then we got more producers involved, and they had notes. And
Oh,
then
Angela, can we step back for a moment? Because I think what you just said was really important, and we kind of have never discussed here on the podcast. These gentlemen approached you, and they're legit people. And while they
Mhm.
couldn't really bring you on, you and they were willing. You were willing to roll up your sleeves and put in the work on maybe a chance, correct?
Absolutely, yeah,
And you
because
have to do that. You
for
have to do
sure.
that.
For sure. I mean, as long as you're protecting yourself, right? And in this case,
Correct.
was my original idea. And this person had great notes that I thought were really smart and helpful. And he wasn't like taking ownership of it. He just wanted to help me get it to a point where he could then step in and help try and get it made.
And that
Um,
happens more times than you think.
sure.
Yeah,
So yeah, you're right. That process, it was long, but it was great because, if the things fell apart, I would just have a better script at the end of the day. So, and I have made this great connection. So it was all upside for me. We got more people involved. UTA came on board, became my agents after they read this particular script, Turn Me On. And they helped us create a package. And then the rewriting, yeah, once we had our financing, we had to do rewrites to the budget. And that meant, doing some cutbacks, but it also meant, I think, really improving the script in some ways. When you have those constraints, sometimes it helps you see things differently and help you figure out what you really
exactly.
need and what you don't need so much. There was lots of rewriting on that one.
Was there anything that was sad to let go? And also, was there anything that just was, how did I not think of this the day I sat down and wrote that you finally
Sure.
came upon?
There were lots of moments like that where it's like, oh, of course, why didn't I think of that? Or, someone points out a story problem. They're like, oh, yeah, of course. Why didn't that come across to me? But yeah, it was such a long process. It's hard to think of individual things. But in
Right.
terms of writing to the budget, we had the main character working at an infant care center for quite a long time. That was the way it was for many, many drafts. And then we realized, oh, that means having a bunch of babies on set, and that just wasn't going to work. So we had to think of a
Oh,
new
how interesting.
that was more contained. But also we ended up coming up with something that I think was a little more fresh and original within this world we had created and spoke to her character a little bit more clearly. So that was a good change that we made.
You like writing sci-fi. Is that partially because of the world building? Do you enjoy world building?
No, I don't. I like writing grounded sci-fi, which I think is a very distinct category of sci-fi.
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
right. Yes.
I'm not creating other worlds and races and planets and intergalactic wars. That's not really my jam. But I really like telling very human stories that have an element of magical realism or some sort of heightened element. And I think sci-fi lends itself to that in a lot of ways. So that's why a lot of my ideas sort of veer in that direction. But it's,
Yes.
this is like sort of sci-fi, but like it's such a big, broad term that kind of applies. But I think magical realism is probably a little bit more of a better overarching term for what I like to do, generally speaking.
Yeah, I like that. You signed with UTA. Congratulations. That's such
Thank
a
you.
wonderful agency. And Forward, the premier talent agency. Can you explain the difference to our writers out there? Agent and management, the
Mhm.
difference.
Yeah, so there is definitely a lot of overlap between the two. I got my managers at Forward first, and I think that tends to be the way it happens for most people, finding a manager first. Because managers tend to be more career focused and they're not so focused on individual projects, but more like how they can help you pick the next thing, give you notes, help you plan what your next 5, next 10 years might look like. They have that sort of broader, more personal touch. They tend to have a smaller roster of clients as well. Agents tend to have a lot more clients
Yeah.
and they're doing a lot more specific. They can like negotiate your deals for you, which, they don't like to do that, but they can. I wanted you to get a lawyer, which I now have as well on my team. Um, but they tend to be more, what can we sell next? What's the next thing we can set you up on? What's the meeting we can get you into that will help lead to the next job? They don't tend to give notes or not as much. They can, and mine do sometimes, but I usually go to my managers first for like the earlier draft notes and then take something that's much closer to me thinking it's ready. And that's when I approach my agents with a script.
You have someone in your back pocket that you just, it can take
Mhm.
the temperature on your script. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And not be embarrassed. And that's key.
When you were interviewing these entities, what kind of questions did you ask? Starting with the agent, what was important to you?
Yeah. So at the point of UTA approaching me, I already had my managers. I had been working with them for maybe 3 or 4 months, not that long. And it was a slow start. I was mostly taking TV meetings and that wasn't really my personal focus in my own writing, but it just seemed like a sort of easier way in. No, but obviously it's not easy at all, but there were more doors open in that regard. But then when I met with my agents at UTA, it just meant for me that a lot more doors would open and I'd have access to a lot more different types of meetings. They just had their own relationships and connections that they brought to the table that expanded upon the relationships that my managers had. So the biggest questions for me, it's not like I had, a ton of agencies all being like, knocking down my door. It was just UTA or nothing, basically. But that is a big call, right? Because it's, another 10% of your paycheck that you want to make
Yes.
sure is going towards something useful. So for me, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just this, they had 2 scripts at the time that they were very excited about and wanted to try and package of mine. And I wanted to make sure it wasn't just these 2 and then they'd be done with me, but that they had a sort of career, a long-term outlook for me as well, and had not just packaging interest at heart, but my interest at heart. So that was what I was trying to suss out. I was talking to them, and they've been wonderful. I'm really happy with my team at UTA.
That's wonderful to hear. Besides Turn Me On, you have 2 other scripts. You've had 2 other scripts made. And if
Mhm.
we're counting, that's 3. That is 3. That is just so amazing. And a kind of a short period of time. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, yes.
Is your
That
mind just blown?
it really is. Yeah. I've been very fortunate. It's been a fun roller coaster these last few years, certainly.
The 2 scripts, If You Were the Last and Black Bags. If You Were the Last follows 2 astronauts who think they've been lost in space forever, fall in love, and become content with their isolated lives. Cannot wait, Angela, for that one. Black Bags is about chance encounter on a Greyhound bus between 2 women with identical black traveling bags. The coincidence sets off a deadly game of cat and mouse. Of the 3 scripts, which needed the most significant rewrite and why?
Well, Black Bags was actually a project that I didn't originate. I was hired to rewrite it. So that would be
Oh,
really, um,
okay. Yes.
yeah. So that's the original idea of a great writer named Adam Pachter. That was his project, and it was with producers. They were very excited to shoot it, but they felt it mostly needed budget changes. He had written this very big story, but they were doing a very micro budget film that was shot for, I think, around $300,000. So this was before I got into the WGA, before I even had my agents and managers. I just connected with these people via Twitter, actually, and got this rewrite job. And it was so much fun. Got a little bit of money to do this rewrite.
Angela, did they just send out a tweet looking for a writer?
I met someone else who was like searching out rom-com scripts, and I had like DM'd her and said, here's what I have. And she said, okay, this isn't right for us, but I know this other person who's looking for scripts. Can I send it to them? And it just became this great little connection. Got the right thing in the right hands at the right time.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And then that shot in 2021 in Oklahoma, and it's all done. And we'll see, like they're looking for distribution now. I'm not sure. It could just stay in a can forever, but it was a very fun experience and a great chance to get on set for a little while and see that process for the first time. And that was a lot of fun.
Cool. And which of these are premiering at South by Southwest?
Yes, that's If You Were the Last. And that shot early last year. That was a really fun experience. The movie is so good. I'm really excited for people to see it. I feel like it honestly came out better than I could have hoped. I feel like everyone just took my intentions with the script and just took them up to another level. The director, Chris Mercado, was so wonderful. Anthony Mackie and Zoe Chow star in that one. They're both amazing. So fun together. Yeah, I can't wait for people to see it. I'm nervous, but I'm really excited that's coming together.
Will you do the sit with the audience or pace in the back?
I don't know where I get to sit, but I have tickets. I'll be at the premiere, bringing along my husband and my sisters. So that should be a lot of fun.
That is so exciting. Now, I'm a feminist, so I can ask this question. Do we know what we're wearing? Are you thinking about that ahead of time?
I've definitely thought a lot about that. And I do have an outfit picked out that I'm pretty excited about.
Good. Yeah. It doesn't hurt. Women can talk about this stuff and we can still be strong. Angela, you wrote an article in Script magazine about writers honing their voices. Love this subject for writers. What does it mean to have a strong voice as a writer?
Sure. That's a tricky question because I feel like everyone has a slightly different answer, right? But to me, I think having a strong voice as a writer just really means figuring out who you are and what you want to say and being clear and confident about that, right? Not like, there's the saying that everyone loves of, good artists borrow and great artists steal. I think that's great advice. But also at some point you need to find confidence in your own internal voice and the stories you want to tell and just lay that out on the line, take big swings. And that's when you can really find what your voice is. And it's hard to define at the end of the day. I couldn't necessarily say this is what makes an Angela script, but hopefully if someone picks it up and then picks up another, they'll be like, oh, that's clearly the same writer and I enjoy it.
How does a writer find their voice?
I think it's a process, right? Trial and error is a big part of it, sticking at it. For me, I started out, my first few scripts were dramas because I thought that was what I was capable of. And then I thought, this isn't very fun. And then I started writing like straight comedy and I enjoyed that much more, but it still wasn't quite right. And then I started playing with mashing genres together. And that's when I started to really feel like I'm writing the movies that I want to see and just being kind of honest about that. Also, for me, a big part of my journey was becoming a mom. And that for me, that whole experience of like growing a person in my body and keeping him alive it was
right.
A confidence building experience. Like I realized that my limits are much farther out than I think they are. And I'm capable of so much. And that really helped me in my writing, like take those lessons and just apply them to the ideas I was putting forward, to the style I chose, to taking those big swings, like I mentioned, and feeling confident that they would connect with someone.
You were just mentioning your child. For many writers, it takes a lot of work to carve out writing time. You have this wonderful busy life. How do you manage?
Sure. Well, I'm in the position, fortunately, now where I am a full-time writer. It is my job. So I do have my, 9 to 4 writing hours every day, which I protect. And I treat it very much like, a desk job where I go to my little office that's, around up the corner from my house and sit down at my desk and try and treat that like work time. And then, give myself the weekends off and have my evenings for my son and my husband and myself. But before I got to this stage, it was tricky. I was a freelance web content right before, making it to this stage. And that gave me a lot of flexibility in my hours and to be able to work from home and do my creative writing in the morning and then my paid work writing in the afternoon. And that let me have a lot of balance. But if you don't have that, my biggest tip, if you like work a 9 to 5 where you have no chance to write during the day, my best advice for being productive and like keeping things moving forward is to set very, very, very small goals. Don't try to like say, I'm going to write 5 pages a day or I'm going to write, 30 pages a month. Like if you put that on yourself, you end up getting discouraged whenever you can't meet that goal and it just sets you back, I feel like. For me, when I, had a newborn and was working and I had my son home with me for the first year, that was a really hard time to try and find writing time. But the goal I set for myself was that I just needed to touch my writing once a day. And that could be editing a sentence, changing a comma to a period, that counted. Thinking of a new idea and writing it down, that counted. Any amount of writing, let me like put an X on that day. And then I was trying to continue that chain of writing a little bit every day. And then for me, the biggest hurdle is always getting started. So when I was able to just get started, I ended up writing much more. And that was sort of like bonus writing, right? And then I was able to be that much more productive just by setting little goals that I felt good about accomplishing. And then I could exceed those.
That is such good advice. And I want everybody to write down, touch your writing every day. I really like that. I think if you ever want to write a book or write your autobiography, that'll be your title. Starting out, what was your biggest misconception about being a working writer?
Whew. I think the biggest misconception I had was that I was past, the rejection part of it, and the heartbreak part of it. But that really doesn't stop. It just gets bigger. Yes, like when it's not placing in a contest, that hurts, right? But when it's, a director was really excited about the script, but now it's fallen apart for unexplained reasons and it's not going to happen. Like that hurts just that much more, because it was so. And it happens all the time. But I also realized through the process of especially making If You Were the Last and being involved as an executive producer on that and seeing the other producers who wanted to come on board and the directors who were so excited about it and the actors who were so excited about it that didn't end up, we didn't go with those people. There's heartbreak and rejection just for everyone in the whole industry. It's not just writers. It feels like it's just us a lot of the time, but it's really everyone who's fighting and working so hard to get to do the things that they really want to do. So that perspective shift was helpful for me to see that we're all just so passionate and working towards the same goals. I think that was a helpful thing to think about.
Are you watching or listening to anything you like lately?
Oh, sure. The movie I watched most recently that I loved so much was After Sun. I thought that was just amazing. It's ended up on all these like best of lists, but it's a little watch so far. So I would encourage people to definitely watch After Sun because it really lives up to the hype. It is.
Where is After Sun? Is it streaming anywhere? Do we know?
Write it on Amazon or like on Apple. You have to pay like for $20 still, I think, which we coughed up and it was well worth it. So don't be.
Cool.
And then what else? I really loved Reboot. Very sad that has gotten not picked up again by Hulu, but hopefully someone else picks that back up. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. And then I recently went back. My husband and I, we revisited High Maintenance, which is a show on HBO that came out years ago, but it's so, so good. And it was very underwatched at the time. So anyone looking to do, character work and improve their character studies, it's all about just these amazing individual vignettes of different characters in New York. And it's so beautiful. So I recommend.
Cool. Have you checked out The Last of Us?
Yes. Been watching that.
I love post-apocalypse stories. And I have to say and listeners, don't worry, no spoilers at all here. I've read all the tropes and I wasn't that big a fan of the first 2 episodes, but by 3, bam, I am in. Yeah. I love it. I'm thinking about it. How about you? What did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it's doing a great job. I mean, my husband is a Marine Corps veteran. And so watching with him, he all the time is like, don't do that. Like you're revealing your back. It's like all these practical issues.
Oh, I would love that.
So that makes it a little harder to watch. But yeah, that episode 3, I think, was an amazing episode of television.
It really was.
Moving forward. Yeah.
Well, I will be at your house for the finale to watch it with your husband. But other than that, would you like to share your social media or where we can follow you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram at Angela B. Wright. And I'm also on Twitter, Angela Bourassa 1. But I'm not super active on Twitter, but I try to be. I'll try hard.
Everybody goes on there and it was like, last tweet, 2018. Yeah. Angela, thank you so much for spending time with us. I'd love for you to come back and maybe talk about your movie premiere at South by Southwest and keep us posted. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
That's a wrap for the Writers Hangout. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and thrive. Till we get to hang out again, keep writing. The world needs your stories. The Writers Hangout is sponsored by the Page International Screenwriting Awards. Executive producer, Kristen O'Verne. Producers, Terry Sampson and Sandy Adamitis. Music by Ethan Stoller.